In this video, we'll be talking about the Cartesian coordinate system, which is the system we use to identify the position of points in 2 dimensions. By the end of this video, you'll be able to plot points on something called the xy plane and also identify the different quadrants of the xy plane. Before we talk about points in 2 dimensions, recall that when we work with points in 1 dimension, we visualize them by plotting them on the number line. For example, let's say we have a point A with coordinate 3. To visualize this point A, we'll start by drawing the number line. We'll start by marking down where 0 is. Then we move to the right. And we can move to the left. So now if we want to plot down the point A, we just draw a point at the location 3 on our number line. If we want to plot a point in 2 dimensions, we use the Cartesian coordinate system, which is also called the rectangular coordinate system. In this coordinate system, we have a pair of coordinate axes, which you can think of as a pair of number lines. We have one that goes horizontal, which we call the x-axis, and another one that goes vertical, which we call the y-axis. The entire space that we're working with here is what we call the xy plane, or sometimes we call this the coordinate plane. We have a special point on the xy plane where our 2 coordinate axes intersect. This point here is called the origin. The position of any point on the xy plane can be described relative to the origin. We use something called a coordinate pair. If a point has coordinates a, b, that means to get to that point, we start at the origin and we move a units horizontally and then b units vertically. That first number a is what we call the x-coordinate of the point, and the second number b is what we call the y-coordinate of the point. So now let's get some practice plotting some points on the xy plane. So in this example, we're asked to plot the following points on the xy plane. A with the coordinates 5, 2, B with coordinates 0, 5, C with coordinates -4, 3, D with coordinates -4, 0, E with coordinates -2, -1, F with coordinates 0, -2, and then G with coordinates 2, -3. Notice that I've already drawn the coordinate axis here for you, but we typically like to label our coordinate axis. So our horizontal coordinate axis, remember, is our x-axis, so we'll draw a little x here. Our vertical axis is called the y-axis, so we'll draw a little y there. Just like a number line, I've drawn some hash marks on my coordinate axis to denote how long one unit is. So I can label my hash marks as 1, 2, 3, for example, going in the other direction, -1, -2, -3. For my y-axis, same thing. I go up 1 unit, that's 1, 2, and 3. Going down, we have -1, -2, -3, and so forth. Now, if we want to plot the point A, we look at its coordinates. It has coordinates 5, 2. That means we want to start at the origin and go 5 units horizontally in the x direction and 2 units vertically in the y direction. So our point A would be this point here. If I want to plot the point B, we look at its coordinates. The coordinates are 0, 5. This means we'll start at the origin and go 0 units horizontally in the x direction and 5 units vertically in the y direction. So our point B ends up over here. Next, let's plot the point C. It has coordinates -4, 3. Notice that the x-coordinate is -4, which is negative. If our x-coordinate is negative, that means we'll be going left instead of going right. So with the coordinates -4, 3, we'll be going left 4 units and then up 3 units. So we have our point C over here. Our next point, D, has coordinates -4, 0. So we'll just be going left again 4 units and then 0 units vertically. So our point D is over here. Our next point E has coordinates -2, -1. Again, the x-coordinate is negative, so we'll be going left 2 units, And this time, our y coordinate is -1, which is also negative. So instead of going up 1 unit, we'll be going down 1 unit. So our point E ends up over here. Our next point F has coordinates 0, -2, so we'll be going 0 units in the x direction and then 2 units down in the y direction. Lastly, for the point G, the coordinates are 2, -3. That means we'll be going 2 units to the right and then 3 units down. So those are all of the points that we wanted to plot. One last thing that I want to mention is that our coordinate axis divides up our xy plane into 4 regions. We call these regions quadrants. The top right region is what we call the first quadrant, so our point A is in the first quadrant. The top left region is called the second quadrant. Our point C here is in the second quadrant. The bottom left region is called the third quadrant, so our point E is in the third quadrant. And then lastly, the bottom right region is called the fourth quadrant, so our point G is in the fourth quadrant. Points that are on the coordinate axis don't belong in any quadrants. So for example, the points B, D, and F, those points aren't in any quadrant. They're just on a coordinate axis. So that's it for this video. In our next video, we'll talk about finding the distance between 2 points on the xy plane.